She had been forgotten, left in a cold hospital hallway, alone and nameless, as if her entire life never mattered. But behind those tired eyes was a fire, a past filled with culture, sacrifice, and pain the world chose to ignore. Tonight, her voice would echo louder than ever before. She didn't beg for pity, she just didn't want to die alone. What happened to Mama Ebel in the heart of a western city will break you, and maybe even change you. Welcome to my channel. Comment where you're watching from, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive into this unforgettable story. Welcome to my channel, where stories come alive with heart and truth. Today's tale will grip your soul. Before we begin, drop a comment to tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a powerful story. Now, let's step into Mama Ebel's world. She lay there, small, quiet, and barely moving, on a rolling bed with rusted edges, wedged between the vending machine and the emergency supply closet. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, buzzing softly like a dying insect trapped inside the hospital's sterile belly. It was cold, too cold for someone her age. Her wrapper barely covered her legs, and the breeze from the hallway vent kept brushing across her skin like a cruel reminder she didn't belong here. People walked by. White coats, blue scrubs, black shoes squeaking, wheels rolling, beeping monitors, everything moving, everything loud. But no one looked at her. Not really. Some glanced quickly, like they weren't sure if she was conscious. Others didn't bother. And still, Mama Ebel waited. She was old, 80 maybe more, but her eyes still held the shimmer of a woman who had once known joy. That sparkle had dimmed now. Her hands trembled from time to time, clutching the frayed edge of her wrapper. She didn't remember how long she'd been left there. A few hours? Overnight? All she knew was that when she had asked to use the bathroom, the young nurse told her, "Hold on, we'll get to you," and then vanished. Now it was nearly morning. She could tell from the thin blue line of daylight creeping along the floor from the far window at the end of the hall. She didn't want to be dramatic. That wasn't her way. But when the pain in her side grew sharp again and her throat dried like sand, she whispered it. "I don't want to die alone." Her voice was so soft, the vending machine made more noise. But she said it anyway. Just in case someone might hear. Before the West, before the cold, before the forgetting, Mama Ebel had lived. She was born in a village surrounded by palm trees and stories. They called her Ebel Chugu, mercy of God. Her name meant something. It danced from lips, rang out in the market, echoed in prayer. She was the youngest of 7 and the loudest. Her mother always told her she was born with thunder in her bones. She married at 19, bore children, and followed her husband to the UK in the late 70s. They worked, cleaning offices, washing dishes, babysitting white children who called her the funny lady with the hair. Still, she survived. But time did what time always does. It took, first, her husband, then the strength in her knees, then her friends, one by one, buried or sent home in boxes back to Nigeria. And then, worst of all, her place in the world. Her daughter, Chioma, had tried it first. Really she had. But London swallowed people differently. And it devoured the part of Chioma that spoke Igbo, that cooked egusi with joy, that laughed at Mama Ebel's proverbs. Chioma was now a nurse, with a mortgage, a white husband, and 2 boys named Dylan and Carter. Mama Ebel had moved in with them after her fall. The fall that had cracked her hip and made her move slower. She was supposed to feel safe. Instead, she felt like luggage. Carried in but never unpacked. "You can't keep cooking with palm oil in here, Mom. The smell stays in the curtains," Chioma had said one night, nose wrinkled, her husband silently agreeing beside her. "But that is how I eat," Mama Ebel had replied, her voice careful. "I get that, but this is my home. We're trying to keep it fresh. Modern." Fresh. Modern. She never understood those words. Not in the way Chioma meant them. The grandsons never looked up from their tablets when she entered the room. And when she tried to tell them stories, real stories, stories about the tortoise and the spirits that lived in rivers. They laughed, thinking it was a cartoon. After 2 years of clashing over little things, salt, volume, smells, Chioma sat her mother down and said they were applying for senior care services. A home. Just until we find the right one. You'll make friends. People your age, Chioma had said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. What she didn't say was that her in-laws had been complaining, that her husband found her mother too ethnic, that their sons were growing up confused. So Mama Ebel went. She didn't fight. What would she have said? That she had left her own mother behind for a better life, only to now become the forgotten? That her name, Ebelchukwu, wasn't even used anymore because everyone here found it too hard? At the home, they called her Emily. She didn't bother correcting them. Now, lying in this hospital hallway, every ache in her bones felt like a memory trying to claw its way out. A young nurse passed again. Blonde. She barely slowed. "Excuse me," Mama Ebel managed, her throat scratching like gravel. The nurse paused, looked around, then stepped closer. "Are you all right, Esther?" Ebel blinked. "No, my name is not Esther." The nurse blinked, flustered. She glanced at the chart and mumbled something about checking the record. Then she was gone. Gone again. Gone like everyone. Ebel's eyes drifted shut, but not to sleep. Instead, her mind took her back. She saw her wedding day. Her husband, in his white igbada, grinning at her like she was the only sun in the sky. He used to call her my storm, because her words always cut through the noise. She saw her mother, shelling groundnuts in the shade, singing that old lullaby. She saw her sisters laughing as they fetched water, skirts hitched high, daring each other to race. And then Chioma, tiny, round, laughing with powder all over her face, tugging at Ebel's wrapper saying, "Tell me story, Mama." She began to cry. Silently. Tears rolled sideways onto the pillow. Then a sound. So slower than the others. And humming. Not a hymn, but close. A figure leaned over. Not white. Older. A woman with dark brown skin, short dreadlocks tucked beneath a cleaning cap. "You okay, Mama?" she asked, voice like warm yam porridge. Mama Ebel opened her eyes. For the first time in hours, they locked eyes with someone who saw her. Really saw her. "I don't want to die here. Alone." The woman's face didn't flinch. She took her hand. "Steady. You're not alone," she said. "Not tonight." The pause. "What's your name?" Mama Ebel exhaled slowly. A long, crumbling sigh. "Ebelchukwu," she whispered. "But they call me Emily." The woman frowned. "Well, I'm Deirdre. And I'm gonna call you Ebelchukwu, because that's your name." Mama Ebel smiled faintly. Just a flicker. A hint of pride flickering back to life. Deirdre sat beside her on a stool she rolled from the supply room. They didn't talk much more. They just stayed. Together. Until a nurse returned and snapped, "You can't sit here, Deirdre. This isn't your break." Deirdre stood, held Ebel's hand one last time, and whispered, "I'll be back." Then she turned to the nurse. "This woman has been out here for hours. No food. No water. Her name is Ebelchukwu. Maybe start there." The nurse hesitated, then glanced down at the clipboard again. Ebelchukwu. But she said it like it had too many syllables. Like it didn't belong in her mouth. Still Ebel heard it. Her name. Spoken aloud. And it was enough, for now. Her eyes fluttered shut. Not to escape, but to rest. The smell of jollof rice filled the entire house. Rich, smoky, thick with tomato, onion, and a hint of dried crayfish. Mama Ebel stirred from memory, not recipe. She didn't need measuring spoons or step-by-step instructions. Her hands knew what to do. Her soul had been cooking this meal for over 60 years. The pot hissed. The oil danced. Somewhere in the corner of the room, an old Nollywood film played from her phone, muffled but comforting. It was one of the few things that still felt familiar. The rest of the house, however, did not. White walls, polished floors, cold air conditioning, a bookshelf filled with names she didn't recognize, white authors, motivational quotes, books on parenting with positivity. Her daughter, Chioma, had built a beautiful home, a successful one, but it was not a place where stories lived. It was a place where stories were silenced. Mama Ebel reached into the cabinet for the red pepper but paused when she heard footsteps. Chioma entered the kitchen, crisp in her nurse's scrubs, hair pulled tightly into a bun. She stopped at the doorway, arms crossed. "Mama, again?" she asked, not hiding her frustration. Ebel didn't turn. "I told you I'm cooking dinner." Chioma exhaled sharply. "But I already made a meal plan, and you know the boys don't like spicy food. That jollof rice, it's too much for them." "It's not too much. They just don't know it yet," Ebel said, her voice calm but pointed. "Mama, they must learn. They are Nigerian too." Chioma stepped forward, her voice now lower, more clipped. "They are British Nigerian, and they eat what they're used to. We don't cook with this much oil, this much salt. And the smell stays in the house. Greg keeps saying it lingers in the curtains. That name, Fred." Ebel didn't respond. She just stirred slowly, as if the movement itself held back the rising tide in her heart. Chioma softened her tone, sensing the tension. "Look, we're trying to keep the house clean, fresh. You know, modern." There it was again. Modern. Ebel turned around now, her eyes steady. "Do you think what I bring is not fresh?" Chioma blinked, caught. "That's not what I meant. I was cooking like this before you were born. This fed you. This kept you strong. This is who we are, Chioma. But now it is too much." There was a long silence. The pot bubbled behind them. "I'm just asking you to consider the house, that's all," Chioma said finally. "And I am asking you to remember who you are." Dinner that evening was awkward. The boys, Dylan and Carter, picked at the rice with puzzled faces. Carter pushed his plate away after one bite. "It's too spicy," he said. "It's not," Dylan argued, though he ate slowly. "It just tastes different." Greg didn't speak. He was never rude, never loud, but always distant when Ebel was around. He didn't correct the boys. He didn't offer Ebel a smile. He just drank his wine and waited for the moment to pass. Chioma cleared her throat. "Maybe next time, we can go easy on the pepper, Mama. Just a little." Ebel nodded silently, though something inside her had already curled into itself. After dinner, she sat alone in the guest room. Her room, the smallest one in the house. No family photos. No memories on the walls. Just a bed, a chair, and a window facing the backyard fence. She missed the sounds of frogs at night, the neighbors shouting across balconies, the smell of wet sand after rain. Now all she had was silence. It wasn't always this way. Chioma used to cling to her, beg for bedtime stories. She used to dance when Ebel sang old Igbo lullabies. They had laughed together, cried together, even prayed together. But slowly that child vanished. The new Chioma was always busy, always moving, always proving something. Ebel once asked her, "Who are you racing?" Chioma replied, "Everyone." The next weekend, they went to a friend's birthday party. Greg's coworker. The house was massive, sleek, with modern art and wine flowing like water. Everyone there was white, except for Chioma and one black man who seemed to be explaining jazz to a woman holding a tiny dog. Chioma introduced her mother politely, then quickly walked away to socialize. Ebel stood in the corner, holding a paper plate of finger food she didn't recognize. The laughter around her was loud, but none of it touched her. A woman approached, smiling. "So, you're Chioma's nanny? You've been with the family long?" Ebel looked at her, stunned. "No, I am her mother." "Oh, of course, I didn't mean. I just assumed, because of the accent and the woman trailed off. Ebel nodded slowly, placing her untouched plate on a nearby table. She didn't speak for the rest of the party. Back home that night, she sat in the living room while Chioma folded laundry. Why didn't you correct her? Ebel asked suddenly. Who? That woman. The one who thought I was your nanny. Chioma sighed. Mama, she was just confused. It wasn't that serious. But it is. To me. Chioma dropped the shirt in her hands. You always make things bigger than they are. Because you always make things smaller. That line sat between them for a moment. Heavy. Chioma stood, hands on her hips. Mama, do you know how hard it is for me here? I have to fight to be taken seriously every day. I'm the only black woman in my department. I'm raising boys who already get followed in stores. I don't have time to worry about every comment. And what do you think I gave up so you could stand in those rooms? Ebel asked, voice trembling. Do you think I came here because I loved the cold? I came so you could speak their language. So you could walk without bowing. And now you walk so far, you forget how to kneel. Chioma's jaw clenched. I am not ashamed, Ebel continued. But you are ashamed of me. I'm not. You are. You bleach your voice. You erase our food. You tell your children to call me grandma, not Fin. You tell them I am too much. But I am just enough for the girl I raised. Silence. Chioma turned away. Maybe it's better if we find a place. Somewhere that can care for you properly. A facility with nurses, therapy. Somewhere that understands elder care. Ebel looked at her daughter like she had never seen her before. You want to put me away. It's not like that. But it is. Chioma didn't respond. That night, Ebel sat in the dark, whispering prayers. Not for herself. For her daughter. A month later, she moved into a senior residence. Not a bad one. Efficient. But lifeless. Like an airport with beds. Staff greeted her with practiced smiles. Residents barely spoke. The food was soft and bland. There was a bingo night she never attended. She asked once if she could cook her own food. They laughed. No open flames, Miss Emily. Emily. That name again. It wasn't hers. But it was on the chart. On her wristband. On her door. She stopped correcting people. What was the point? One afternoon, Chioma visited. It had been 3 weeks since the move. Hi, Mama, she said, her smile tight. How are they treating you? Ebel shrugged. You look tired, Chioma added. Are you sleeping okay? Ebel didn't answer. Do you need anything? Ebel finally looked up. This. My name. Chioma frowned. They call me Emily here. You signed the form. Chioma looked away. It was easier for them to pronounce. So I must be erased for their ease? Mama, don't start. I am not starting. I am ending. Ending this silence. You may no longer need my stories, but they still live in me. Chioma's phone buzzed. She glanced down. I have to go. I'm working the night shift. Ebel nodded. As Chioma turned to leave, her mother's voice stopped her. One day, you will need a story to hold you. I just hope you'll remember who you got it from. That night, Ebel's breathing changed. Shallow. Labored. The nurse on duty didn't notice. She was on break. The orderlies assumed she was asleep. By morning, she had fallen in the hallway while trying to reach the water station. That's how the ambulance came. That's how she ended up in the hospital corridor. Unheard. Alone. And as the cold seeped deeper into her bones, all she could think was, they have taken my name. What else will they take before I leave this world? It started with a cough. Soft at first. The kind that teased the throat but didn't demand much attention. But in the quiet loneliness of the senior care home, even a cough felt like thunder. Mama Ebel sat near the window, wrapped in a faded sweater, sipping lukewarm tea that tasted more like boiled water than anything comforting. The sun filtered through the thin curtains, casting long shadows across the linoleum floor. Outside, the world moved briskly, cars, sirens, joggers. Inside, time crawled. Her cough returned. This time, deeper. She sighed and stood slowly, her body aching with each movement. The ache had grown worse in recent weeks. Her joints protested every step, her back hunched more than usual. But she hadn't told anyone. Not the nurses. Not the aides. They barely asked. Besides, whenever she mentioned pain, it was brushed off. "You're just getting old, Emily," they would say with a well-rehearsed smile. That name again. Emily. She stopped correcting them. She stopped asking. Later that afternoon, a van transported her to the local public health clinic. It wasn't her choice. One of the aides had noticed her coughing during breakfast and filed a routine report. "Better to check before it spreads," they'd said. The clinic was everything she feared: cold, loud, and impersonal. Posters lined the walls in English and a few other languages, but none in Igbo or Yoruba. The waiting room smelled of antiseptic and fear. Young mothers with crying babies. Old men nodding off in their seats. A television mounted high played silent news. Ebel sat alone, her hands resting on her lap, her knees quietly throbbing. She clutched the paper she had been handed at reception. Her name was misspelled again. Nwokedi Emily. A nurse finally called her in. Blunt, but detached. "Come on in, Emily." Ebel rose slowly. "My name is not." Sure. Come in." No room for correction. No room for story. The examination room was small and sterile, with faded blue paint and a faint buzzing sound from the overhead light. A white male doctor walked in, tall and bald, glasses perched low on his nose. He didn't greet her. Instead, he stared at his tablet. "All right, so you've got a cough and some body aches, is that right?" Ebel nodded slowly. "Yes. But also, my legs, they hurt. Deep inside. And sometimes my chest feels heavy, like there's a stone inside it." The doctor tapped something on the screen, barely glancing at her. "Have you had your flu shot this year?" "Yes. I think so." He finally looked up, and when he spoke, his voice got louder and slower, as if volume could cross cultural lines. "Do you understand me?" She blinked. "I understand English. I have lived here for more than 40 years. He nodded, unfazed. "That's good. We'll get a chest x-ray. It's probably just a seasonal bug. And we'll give you something for the pain. But the pain is not new. It is growing. I think something is wrong." He smiled the way people smile when they want the conversation to end. "You're just aging, Emily. That's what happens. Take the meds. Stay hydrated." She wanted to scream. Not from the pain, but from the erasure. From the way her concerns were reduced to dust. She had survived war, childbirth, immigration, racism, and widowhood. And now? She couldn't even get someone to say her name right. Later that day, a social worker arrived with a clipboard and a fast-talking mouth. "Hi, Mrs. Nwokedi. Do you mind if I call you Emily?" "Great. So, we're reviewing your living arrangements, and there are a few notes about non-compliance. You missed your fall prevention class last week." "I had a fever," she said gently. "Oh, well, these sessions are part of your care plan, so it's important we attend them, all right." The woman didn't wait for a reply. She kept clicking her pen, flipping through forms. "Now, have you considered transitioning to a higher care facility? One with around-the-clock monitoring? Your daughter signed a form allowing us to assess placement if necessary." Ebel's heart sank. "This home is already too quiet," she murmured. "I do not want more silence." The woman barely heard her. "Let's just see how you respond to the new prescriptions first. Then we'll reassess." Paper. Policies. Boxes ticked. Not a single question about who she was. About what she needed beyond medical care. No space for dignity. No room for culture. No curiosity about the woman beneath the wrapper and worn slippers. A week passed. The cough worsened. The medication didn't help. It made her dizzy and nauseated. The home staff called her non-compliant again when she refused to take it one evening. She told them her stomach ached too much, that the pills made her mouth bitter. Their report noted patient resistance to treatment. The ache in her legs grew so sharp she could barely walk to the dining hall. One night, she sat in her bed holding a small cloth bag. Inside it, dried bitter leaves she had hidden in a drawer. Back in Nigeria, her mother used to boil them with ginger and honey for healing. She whispered over them the old prayers from childhood. Oluwa, Gba Agba mi pada. God, give me back my strength. The next morning, an aide found the cloth and reported her. Unauthorized herbal remedies, the nurse muttered with a shake of the head. She doesn't follow instructions. She still believes in those bush things. No one asked why. 3 days later, her breath caught again. This time sharp. Sudden. The ache that had been crawling in her back now screamed down her side. An ambulance was called. And just like that, she was placed on a stretcher, her name once again scribbled on a tag, Emily N. They wheeled her through the emergency room, past the noise, past the monitors and machines, until finally, she was left parked in a hallway. Not a room. Not even a curtain. Just a wall. A machine beeped softly nearby. A janitor mopped the floor, humming under his breath. Nurses passed, too busy to pause. Her voice was barely audible. I don't want to die alone. And then footsteps. A tall, dark-skinned man appeared. Mid-30s. Dreadlocks tied back. A quiet strength in his presence. He was pushing a supply cart, but stopped when he saw her. He looked again. Slower this time. His eyes met hers. He didn't look away. He walked over and spoke in low, deliberate Yoruba. Mommy, isi alafia and I? Mother, are you okay? Her lips trembled. Igbo and Imo and so. I speak Igbo. The man switched instantly with grace. Edem, he said gently. Kidu? What's your name? She paused. Her eyes brimmed. Ebelchukwu. He nodded slowly. Aha gibu is Igbo aha. Your name is a good name. For the first time that day, someone saw her. Not her illness. Not her age. He returned minutes later with a cup of warm tea, real tea. Not the bland hospital kind. She sipped slowly. They spoke for a short while. He told her his name was Chuka. His parents were from Anambra. He had come to the UK when he was 5. He worked night shifts. Saved what he could. Still sent money home. He smiled and said, When I saw you, I thought of my grandmother. Tears fell freely down her cheeks. You are the first to ask my name, she said. Since I came to this hospital, nobody asked. Chuka placed a hand gently over hers. Your name matters. And in that moment, it did. But when Chuka left, the cold returned. A nurse came to check her chart. She didn't look up from her clipboard. Esther Nwokidi? She called out. Ebel didn't respond. Esther? Still nothing. The nurse muttered under her breath and walked away. Alone again. But this time, something inside her began to burn. Not rage. Not defiance. Something deeper. A quiet decision. She would not go quietly. If this world insisted on forgetting her, then she would remind it, piece by piece, of everything she was. Everything she still is. Even if her last breath had to speak it. And as the machines beeped in rhythm with her fading strength, she whispered into the silence, My name is Ebelchukwu, and I will not leave this world as a stranger. Mildred hadn't spoken to Diane in over a week. The old woman sat by the window, her eyes tracing the outline of the maple tree outside the care facility. Its branches swayed against the dusk like arms reaching for something long lost. The walls of her room were a muted beige, lined with faded photographs and African masks that once hung proudly in her Bronx apartment. Now, they looked like ghosts trying to remind her who she used to be. But Mildred barely remembered. Or maybe she just didn't want to. The nurses passed her room, offering quick hellos, but she didn't answer. Her body sat upright, posture proud, but her spirit was unraveling thread by thread. Even the pain in her knees was easier to bear than the ache in her soul. Her daughter's absence cut deeper than anything she could explain. And the silence? It screamed louder than any argument they'd ever had. Diane's words had rung heavy that last visit. You act like I'm supposed to carry your whole past, Mama. But I'm not your village. I'm not your memory. Mildred had smiled then. A smile too wide, too empty. And she said nothing. Not because she didn't have words, but because she feared what would come out if she used them. Since that evening, the phone didn't ring. The door didn't creak open. And Mildred's meals grew colder and smaller. She ate less. Slept less. She thought of Abby, her older sister. Her protector. The woman who stayed behind in Ghana when Mildred chased a better future to America. Abby had told her, "You'll forget us once you get there." Not on purpose. But because forgetting is survival over there. Mildred didn't believe her back then. But now, sitting in her room surrounded by machines that beeped and buzzed, by aides who called her sweetie but never said her name correctly, she wondered if ABA had been right all along. Earlier that week, Nurse Christine had wheeled her into the hallway while her room was cleaned. A simple routine. But that day, it wasn't routine at all. The hallway was unusually busy. Nurses shouted over each other. Gurneys rolled past like speeding trucks. A man cried out from room 2B. Another coughed violently from behind a curtain. Mildred sat motionless, alone in her wheelchair, near the supply closet. She had been forgotten. Her call button had slipped to the floor. Her body was cold. Her hands, folded neatly in her lap, trembled. That was when it escaped her lips, soft, like a prayer. I don't want to die alone. Nurse Christine, rushing past, didn't hear it. The words didn't come again. Not then. Not loud. But they hung in the air, echoing in Mildred's ears long after. Later that night, after the commotion had died down and she was returned to her room, something changed. Something inside her. Mildred reached for the drawer beside her bed. Her fingers, gnarled from time and arthritis, wrapped around a small, hand-woven pouch. She opened it. Inside were letters, dozens of them. From Gibeah, from Kweku, from the village elders she hadn't seen in 40 years. Their handwriting was careful, sometimes broken. But every word was alive. She unfolded one slowly. It smelled of old ink and a hint of palm oil. Sister Mildred, the rains were heavy this year. We danced even though the corn harvest was late. We still keep your picture by the fire. The children think you are a queen. They ask about the land of ice and tall buildings. I tell them your heart still beats for us, even from across the ocean. Mildred pressed the paper to her chest and closed her eyes. And for the first time in days, she wept. Quietly. With the dignity of someone mourning not just a person or place, but the loss of belonging itself. The next morning, Nurse Christine noticed something. Mildred was sitting differently. Not stiffer. Not weaker. Just changed. She didn't speak. But her eyes seemed to be waiting. Expecting. Christine approached, brushing a loose braid from Mildred's temple. Good morning, Miss Boateng. Mildred looked at her for a long time. And then, slowly, she spoke. You know my name. Christine smiled. Of course I do. No, child. You said it, like you meant it. Christine didn't know how to answer. She just squeezed the woman's shoulder and promised she'd come back to talk later. And this time she did. Later that day, while helping fold Mildred's laundry, Christine noticed a photo on the windowsill. A young Mildred in ochre dress, standing beside a woman who looked almost identical, her sister. Is this you? Christine asked. Mildred nodded, a faint pride rising in her voice. ABA, my older sister. She looks like she could take on the world. She did. And I wanted to be just like her. Christine listened as Mildred shared pieces of her past, her first day in America, her job as a cleaner in a Boston hospital, the first time she was told she was too loud, too African, or too much for the white neighborhood she had moved into, and how she had slowly shrunk. Each story unfolded like a scar being uncovered, painful, but proof of survival. "You're still here," Christine whispered. Mildred smiled. "Barely. But maybe being barely here is still being here." That night, a phone rang in Diane's house. She stared at the screen. It was the care facility. For a moment, her heart dropped. She almost didn't answer. But something made her pick it up. "This is Diane," she said, voice guarded. "Hi," Christine began. "Your mom asked me to tell you something. She said she doesn't want to die with regret. That's all she said. But I think you should come." There was silence. Then a shaky breath. "I'll be there." 2 days passed. And still, Diane didn't show. Mildred waited. Her eyes flickered toward the door with every passing footstep in the hall. But no Diane. She told herself she didn't care. But when the night came, and the sky turned a bruised shade of blue, Mildred whispered into the darkness, "Why did I come here at all?" She closed her eyes. And that's when she heard it, the creak of the door. Her heart leaped. But it wasn't Diane. It was an unfamiliar young man, maybe in his late 20s. He wore a janitor's uniform. His name tag read Jamal. He looked nervous. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm not supposed to talk much. But my grandma used to play this song all the time. And I heard it coming from your radio the other night." Mildred blinked, unsure. I think she would have liked you. She passed last year." Mildred nodded slowly. "Then maybe she's telling you to speak now." Jamal sat on the windowsill. And for the next hour, they spoke. Not of pain, but of Ghana. Of jollof rice cooked over charcoal. Of Motown on Saturdays. Of grandmothers who knew how to hush pain with a look. When he left, Mildred held the silence in her hands. It didn't scream anymore. It comforted. But the ache for her daughter remained. On the 4th day, just before dusk, Diane stood outside the care facility entrance. Her hands trembled, clutching a bouquet of wilting lilies. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from her partner. *, you don't have to carry all her wounds. Just show up, *. She stared at the door, took a breath, then walked in. Inside, Mildred was asleep. Or so it seemed. The lights were low. Her body, now thinner than ever, lay still beneath a floral blanket. Diane stepped closer. Her fingers brushed her mother's arm. "Mama?" No answer. She dropped the lilies. Tears filled her eyes. "Mama, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to leave you here." Still, no answer. She fell to her knees beside the bed, weeping. I didn't know how to carry both your world and mine." And then a hand touched her cheek. "Alive. I never asked you to carry both," Mildred whispered. "Only to remember they exist." The sun was already high over the city when Tasha pulled up to the nursing home in her sleek, rented SUV. She sat still behind the wheel, staring at the building as if it were a courtroom. Her fingers drummed nervously against the steering wheel, tapping out the guilt that had slowly eaten away at her for months. The message from the nurse had been short but sharp. Mama Roo had collapsed. She was stable now, but the words stuck with Tasha like needles. Stable was just another way to say, still breathing for now. It had been 6 months since she'd last visited. 6 months of late replies, missed calls, and well-meaning excuses. Now here she was. She took a breath, fixed her makeup in the rearview mirror, and stepped out. Her heels clicked sharply against the sidewalk, but with each step, she felt less like the confident woman she pretended to be, and more like the little girl who used to cry when Mama Roo left for night shifts. Inside, the reception area was quiet. A young black woman behind the counter looked up, her smile faltering for a second. Tasha noticed. "I'm here to see Rua Mans," she said, trying to sound composed. The woman gave her a look, not mean, just tired. She pointed to the right hallway. "Room 114. She's awake. But take it slow." Tasha nodded, her throat tight. The hallway stretched before her like a memory. The faint smell of antiseptic clung to the air. She passed wheelchairs, walkers, and faces that looked up only to turn away again. When she reached the door, her hand hesitated on the knob. She could hear soft gospel music playing from inside. She pushed the door open. Mama Ru sat upright in bed, her eyes staring out the window at a tree swaying in the breeze. Her face looked older, not just from age, but from something deeper, a kind of tiredness that couldn't be fixed with rest. "Mama," Tasha said, her voice almost breaking. Mama Ru didn't turn right away. She just said, "Now you remember." The words didn't come with venom. They came like a sigh that had been waiting too long to escape. Tasha stepped closer. "I know. I should have come sooner." Mama Ru looked at her then, eyes dark and piercing. "What kept you?" "Work. I thought you were doing fine. Clara said you were doing fine." "Fine? In the hallway? Next to a vending machine?" Tasha winced. The truth was harder than the silence. "I thought you'd be proud of what I've made of myself." Mama Ru gave a short, dry laugh. "Proud? What? That you ran so far from where you came from, you forgot the path back." Tasha sat down on the edge of the bed, unsure of how to carry the weight in her chest. "I didn't forget, Mama. I just got lost." Mama Ru softened a little at that. Her hand reached out, slow and trembling, and she placed it on Tasha's knee. "The world out there will swallow you whole if you let it. I raised you to be strong, not to forget." Tasha nodded. "I know. That's why I came. I want to take you out of here. Back home. To a better place." For a long time, Mama Ru said nothing. The gospel song faded into a soft instrumental, like the background music to a memory. "You can take me anywhere," she said finally. "But unless you're coming too, it won't matter. I don't need a nicer room. I need my daughter." Tasha felt the tears rise, and she didn't fight them. They sat in silence for a while, the past stretched out between them like a road they both had to walk again. Then a knock at the door interrupted the quiet. Clara stepped in, her face gentle but alert. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here asking to see you both." "Who?" Tasha asked. Clara hesitated. "He said his name is Pastor Eli." Mama Ru straightened slightly. Tasha looked puzzled. A moment later, a tall, dark-skinned man stepped into the room. He wore a neatly pressed suit, but it was his eyes that drew attention, full of fire and something deeper. Recognition sparked in Mama Ru's expression, but Tasha didn't know the man. He stepped closer. "I know this is unexpected, but I have something important to say. To both of you." Mama Ru nodded slowly, almost as if she'd been expecting this day. Tasha frowned. "I'm sorry, but who exactly are you?" He looked at her and gave a slight bow of the head. "I was your father's closest friend. We came here together, long ago." Mama Ru's lips parted, but no words came. Pastor Eli reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, leather-bound book. He held it out gently. "Before your father passed, he asked me to give this to you both. I tried to reach you months ago, but it seems the system has ways of keeping people apart." Tasha took the book with shaking hands. It felt old and warm. Inside were pages filled with Joseph's handwriting. Letters. Unsent messages. One page was marked with a folded corner. Tasha opened to it. "To my girls. If you're reading this, I'm gone. But my love isn't. I came to this country with hope, and I leave with faith that you two will find each other again. Home is not where we sleep. It's who we hold." Tasha couldn't read anymore. Her tears blurred the ink. Mama Ru reached out and pulled her daughter into her arms. The silence in the room changed. It wasn't heavy anymore. It was healing. Pastor Eli stepped back quietly, watching the reunion with a tired smile. "There's more in that journal," he said, "about things Joseph left behind. Property. A fund. But I think this moment matters more than any of that." Tasha looked up. "Why are you just telling us now?" His smile faded. "Because some people tried to make sure you never saw it." Mama Ru narrowed her eyes. "Who?" He looked down. People you trusted. And just like that, the warmth in the room turned to ice. We'll talk more, he said. But first, you both need to rest. And then decide what to do next. He stepped out, closing the door softly. Mama Rue looked at her daughter, her eyes firm. No more running, Tasha. It's time to dig. We need to know who tried to erase your father. And why. The day began with a bright sun hanging confidently in the sky, but inside Gloria's soul, storm clouds brewed, thick and unrelenting. The pressure of the lie she had built, brick by brick, was now becoming unbearable. She had never expected the deception to go this far, or for her heart to betray her so deeply. It had been 2 days since she returned from Christopher's house, 2 days of silence, of pacing back and forth in her room, and of her mother's sharp glances filled with questions. Gloria hadn't spoken to Irene since then, nor had she seen Christopher. But his face lingered, carved in her memory. The way he looked at her, not with pity or arrogance, but with warmth and something that felt like protection. She hated it. Not him. But the feeling. It was confusing, dangerous, and most of all, it was not part of the plan. That morning, Gloria sat by the wooden table in their cramped kitchen, her thoughts spinning like laundry in a rusted machine. Mama Nkechi, who had remained oddly quiet since Gloria's return, finally broke the silence. Are you ready for tomorrow? You remember who's coming, right? Gloria nodded, but her voice was low. Chief Benson. Mama Nkechi's eyes sharpened. Then act like it. No more sulking. You will smile. You will behave. And you will not embarrass me. We've waited too long for this moment. Gloria's insides twisted. She wanted to scream that she had met someone else, someone whose silence was louder than any grand promise, someone who saw her when she wasn't even trying to be seen. But instead, she said nothing. Just picked at the edge of the cracked table, as though it could open a way out. Later that afternoon, she wandered aimlessly through the market. The scent of pepper and smoked fish mingled in the air, but nothing seemed to stir her appetite. The market women called her name, but she barely responded. Her head was filled with questions. Would Christopher reach out? Would he fight for her if he knew the truth? Did he even care? A sharp voice brought her back. Gloria! She turned. It was Irene, arms crossed, lips pursed. I've been looking for you. What's going on? You disappeared after that night. You didn't even call. Gloria tried to mask the guilt. I was just overwhelmed. Overwhelmed? Or is something else going on? That look in your eyes, it's not just stress. Did something happen with that man? Gloria's silence confirmed it. Irene moved closer. Talk to me, Gloria. What's happening? For a moment, Gloria wanted to confess everything, to tell Irene about the night she spent at Christopher's house, about the awkward dinner, about the morning tea and the lingering looks. But fear held her back. Nothing happened, she lied. I just realized this whole game. It's stupid. It's not who I am. Irene raised an eyebrow. Now you realize that? After dragging me into it? Gloria, this wasn't just your little adventure. We both lied. We both acted. And now you want to grow a conscience. The sting of her words cut deep. Gloria turned away, blinking fast. I didn't mean to drag you. I just what? I think I like him, Irene. Not the billionaire him. Just him. Irene's face softened for a moment before hardening again. That wasn't the plan, Gloria. And now what? You want to tell him the truth? You think he'll just laugh and marry you anyway? Gloria's voice dropped to a whisper. I don't know. The next day came too fast. Mama Nkechi had the entire house turned upside down. Every corner was scrubbed. Curtains were replaced. Food was cooked in large pots. The scent of jollof rice and grilled chicken filled the compound. Her mother looked regal in her finest wrapper and head tie, beaming with pride. Gloria, however, felt like a prisoner in silk. She stood before the mirror, staring at her reflection. The dress was stunning, A gift from Chief Benson the last time he visited. Red satin, hugging her curves, with a neckline that screamed power. But Gloria saw none of it. All she saw was a woman trapped in someone else's story. Then came the knock. The door creaked open. Mama and Ketchy rushed to greet their guest with a wide smile. Chief Benson. Welcome, welcome. He entered like he owned the air around him. His agbada swayed. His shoes glistened. His eyes, sharp and entitled, scanned the room until they landed on Gloria. My dear Gloria, you look edible. Gloria forced a smile. Every cell in her body recoiled. They sat. They ate. They laughed. Or rather, he and Mama and Ketchy laughed. Gloria barely spoke. Her mind wasn't in the room. Then he said it. So, when is the introduction happening? I think we've played enough. I'm ready to marry her. And I don't believe in long engagements. Mama and Ketchy's face lit up. Next week, we'll start the preparations immediately. Gloria's fork dropped. Chief Benson smirked. What's the matter? Cat got your tongue? She tried to compose herself. I wasn't aware the date was being decided today. Mama and Ketchy's tone grew sharp. You don't need to be aware. This is the best thing that will ever happen to you. Do not ruin it. Gloria stood. Her voice cracked. Excuse me. I need air. She rushed out before tears betrayed her. She didn't stop running until she was far from the compound. Into the woods behind their village, where tall trees stood like silent guards. There, she collapsed under an old mango tree. The tears came in waves, years of frustration, of pretending, of bending to someone else's will. She heard footsteps. I had a feeling I'd find you here. She looked up. Christopher. In a simple shirt and jeans. No guards. No cars. Just him. Gloria couldn't speak. She wiped her tears quickly. What are you doing here? He sat beside her. I came to see you. But your mother told me you were busy with your fiancé. She winced. He's not my fiancé. Not really. It's complicated. He watched her. Then explain it. Gloria, ever since that day, I haven't been able to get you off my mind. I need to know, was any of it real? Her heart pounded. I was going to ruin your date. That was the plan. We never expected you to be. And I never expected to feel this. He was quiet for a long time. Then, softly, so you lied to me. Yes. And I'm sorry. But you were never the target. Not really. I didn't know how to walk away. And then you were kind. And funny. And I felt safe. I haven't felt that in a long time. He looked at the sky. Do you love him? She shook her head. No. I'm being forced. It's politics and poverty. He nodded slowly. Then let me help. She turned to him, eyes wide. Why? Because you deserve a choice. And because maybe, just maybe, I feel something too. In the silence that followed, the breeze whispered through the trees, wrapping around them like a promise. A fragile, uncertain promise. But then, a voice cut through the calm. Gloria! Gloria! Come out now. It was Mom and Ketchy. Christopher tensed. Gloria stood. This isn't over, he said. It never was, she whispered. As she turned and walked back toward the house, her mother's furious figure in the distance, Gloria knew the storm had only just begun. The morning after the police raid was quieter than usual in the apartment complex. The air was thick with tension, as if the building itself held its breath. Neighbors avoided eye contact, and whispers floated between half-closed doors. It was as if everyone had witnessed a horror, yet no one dared to name it. Mama Louise sat by her kitchen window, her hands trembling as she stirred a cup of tea she never took a sip from. She hadn't slept. Her heart had not stopped pounding since the officers dragged her out in handcuffs, only to release her hours later without an apology. The humiliation lingered like a stain she couldn't scrub off. Outside, the sun stretched across the cracked sidewalks, trying to warm a neighborhood that had grown cold with judgment and shame. Children avoided her doorstep. Even the mailman, who used to chat briefly every morning, now dropped her mail without a glance. Inside her apartment, Mama Louise stared at the floor. Her granddaughter, Nia, had been silent since they returned home. The child had watched it all. The flashing lights, the shouting, the way the officers yanked her grandmother away as if she were some criminal. That silence was the sharpest wound. Nia stood in the hallway now, holding a crayon but unable to color. Her eyes searched her grandmother's face for assurance, for answers. But Mama Louise had none. What could she say? That they mistook her for a squatter? That her skin, her accent, her clothes made her a suspect? A knock at the door startled them both. Mama Louise stiffened. Nia ran to the living room. It was the building manager, a pale-faced woman named Deborah with tightly pursed lips and eyes that scanned the room as though inventorying furniture. "I just wanted to check if you're okay," she said, though her voice lacked sincerity. Mama Louise didn't respond. Her silence stretched too long, forcing Deborah to clear her throat and say, "There have been complaints. Noise. Police involvement. You understand, this place has rules." Mama Louise's lips trembled. "So because the police embarrassed me, now I'm the problem?" Deborah blinked. "I didn't say that. I'm just letting you know we'll be reviewing your lease." That was it. No apology. No sympathy. Just another warning wrapped in false concern. When the door shut, Mama Louise sat back down slowly, her chest heavy with the weight of dignity slowly being chipped away. Later that afternoon, the community center down the street held a small support circle for tenants affected by unjust treatment. Nia tugged her grandmother's hand, insisting they go. Mama Louise almost refused, pride clashing with fatigue. But she saw something in Nia's eyes, a flicker of hope. So she dressed in her neatest church blouse, tied her scarf, and walked beside her granddaughter through the familiar streets that now felt foreign. Inside the center, folding chairs formed a circle. Faces she recognized, Mrs. Alvarez from the second floor, Mr. Darnell from the bakery, a young single mother named Keisha, sat quietly, some with arms folded, others clutching their knees. A man named Elijah led the circle. Tall, soft-spoken, with a notepad full of names and stories. He welcomed them and invited each person to speak. Mama Louise didn't plan to talk. She came to listen. But when Keisha tearfully described how the building's management ignored her maintenance requests, and Mr. Darnell spoke about being followed in stores, something shifted in her. When her turn came, she stood slowly. "I came here for peace. I worked hard, raised children, cooked meals for neighbors who couldn't feed themselves. But that morning, when the police burst in like I was an animal, they stole something from me. Not just peace. Dignity." The room was still. Elijah nodded gently. "What do you need now, Mama Louise?" She swallowed hard. To be seen. To be heard. To not be treated like dirt. That night she wrote her story. Every word was painful, but she poured it out. She wrote about her life in Mississippi, the move to Chicago, the years spent cleaning homes, raising other people's children, losing her husband. She wrote about resilience. About what it meant to be an old black woman who had always held her head high, until someone knocked her down. The next day, Elijah helped her submit the story to a local paper. They titled it, "The Knock That Stole My Peace." The article spread faster than Mama Louise expected. Within a week, a community activist reached out. Then a journalist. Then a councilwoman who wanted to meet her in person. Mama Louise was nervous. She wasn't used to attention. But when she walked into that town hall meeting, dressed in her Sunday best, and saw rows of faces looking back at her with respect, not pity, something in her spirit stood taller. She told her story again, this time into a microphone. She spoke for herself, for Nia, for every woman who had been silenced. Her voice cracked, but she never stopped speaking. After the meeting, a reporter asked her, "How do you feel now, Mama Louise?" She looked at Nia, who was standing proudly by her side. "Like I've taken back my name." But as the praise poured in, so did resistance. The building's management served her a letter, Non-renewal of lease. No explanation. Just 30 days to vacate. Mama Louise sat on her couch, the letter trembling in her hand. Nia crawled into her lap. Are we moving again, Grandma? Tears welled up in Mama Louise's eyes. Not yet, baby. Not without a fight. Thanks for watching. See you soon and bless us with a follow.